Welcome back, everybody. This is Andrew McPeak, and co-hosting along with me is, man, I don't even know. She's beyond description, ladies and gentlemen, Gina Watts.
That's probably my favorite intro yet.
Well, folks, if you believe that schools should be more than just about essays and GPAs, if you believe that EQs are just as important as IQs, and if you expect amazing things from the next generation, then you're in the right place, because we believe that too.
Can you believe it, Andrew? It is our final episode of season 2.
This is crazy.
It is. It's gone by so fast. I genuinely can't believe it.
We talked about a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. We are 2 seasons into this podcast.
That's crazy.
That's great.
Well, I really genuinely can't believe it. In fact, Gina, it feels like it was just yesterday we were recording episode 1 of this season.
I know it. I mean, we literally were, believe it or not, folks, we filmed all 15 episodes in just 2 days.
Yeah.
But we had so much fun doing it.
We really did. Yeah, that's a little behind the scenes. That entire season that you might have just listened to, we've done in the last 2 days. So if we sounded a little crazy, now you know why. We decided to do 15 episodes this season rather than 14 like we did last season, because today's episode got into a topic we just absolutely could not leave out. When talking about innovation and tech in the classroom, we really needed to talk about the digital divide. This idea of digital equity. It's a really important topic, and so we saved, in some ways, the best and most important for last. But first, Gina, we got to get to our opening question. Are you ready?
I am ready.
This is fun. Tell me about your first cell phone.
Okay. So my first cell phone I was in college.
Okay.
I was in college.
Do you want to give us a year, or are we not touching that?
No, I feel like it was maybe... it had to be somewhere between 98 and 2002.
Okay.
So it was somewhere in there. And it was a Nokia flip phone.
Okay.
It was not quite gold and not quite silver. It was like something in between that color.
The gold silver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my number, I won't give the area code because that still might be a real number. I don't know.
We don't want to, yeah.
But my number was 570-0000.
Really?
And it was a real number that was given to me. I bought it off of my friend Jamie. Shout out Jamie. She had a little job at the mall in the in
Those were the early days.
In a little stand in the middle of the mall. And yeah.
That was like the Lord said, let there be light, and then handed you this cell phone. That's how early it was.
And people wouldn't believe that was my number. So if I was go out to
call me,
a club, exactly, and I would be like, hey, call me, and I would give them. If you just didn't want me to have your number, you didn't have to lie. And I'm like, I'm not lying, but okay. And so then I didn't have to really give out my phone number for real. I mean, I gave it out, but people wouldn't believe it, so they didn't call me. So it's fine, great,
so good.
How about you? What was your first phone?
My first phone was also a flip phone.
Okay.
You remember back in, this is probably 2006, 2007. The Motorola Razr was a big deal. Mm-hmm. I didn't have one of those.
Oh, okay.
But it's
delivered it so seriously.
It's a really important reference point because everyone had one of those.
Everyone
they were the
did.
coolest phone you could have at the time. But back in the day, you couldn't just buy any phone and then get it on any network. Your phone was attached to your network, right?
Right.
And people forget that the original Razr you could only get if you were on Verizon.
Right.
I was on Sprint, the less cool network.
I was on Sprint too.
Okay.
For that Nokia.
So I had the Sprint knockoff of the Razr. It was similar, but not the same. I actually ended up loving that phone. Had it for years, worked great. But yeah.
Did you ever have a BlackBerry?
Never had a BlackBerry. They were a hot commodity for grown-ups with email addresses.
Yeah. Andrew is 9 years younger than me. So
I think they were dying as I was in college.
Probably.
So I never really had the opportunity to have one.
But I don't remember if I had one or not. I don't think I did, but everybody kind of around me had them.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's too much.
When I was the big thing when I was in high school and college was the Sidekick. Do you remember those things that you flip the little thing?
Yeah.
That noise, if somebody made that noise right now, I think I would shake, with I was like, I remember how many times people around me. But that was a big deal. Gina, we've come a long way.
We really have. Cell phones are literally everywhere, and almost everyone has one. But that is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to technology.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, we didn't have smart TVs, smart watches, laptops, iPads, and more. But then you have apps and software and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's really endless.
It
Everything
feels like
that we
it
have
is,
access to. So then we start seeing people fall behind because of the demand for the latest tech, which is also true when it comes to schooling. So with all of the tech that we have been talking about this season, it does not feel right to talk about what it looks like. It does not feel right if we don't talk about what it looks like for every student to have access to the tools necessary to support their learning, whether at school or at home.
So true. So true, right? As we continue through this digital age, the digital divide is going to be a really big topic that we just can't ignore. It's too big of a topic.
So today we're going to bring in an expert, Cinthia Diaz. She's the Director of Community Impact for Oakland Undivided. Oakland Undivided is a community-focused program started in May of 2020 to bring people together to solve the ongoing problem of the digital divide, ensuring everyone has access to technology and the internet. Let's hear more about the work that they are doing in schools and in the community.
So my name is Cinthia Diaz. I'm the Director of Community Impact for Oakland Undivided. I've been with Oakland Undivided for 3 years, proudly raised in Oakland, still have a lot of family there. So the work that I do is very close to my heart. So Oakland Undivided is a collective impact initiative. We're focused on addressing the digital divide in our city. And like many other digital divide initiatives, we started at the onset of the pandemic in 2020, and we started in our previous Oakland Mayor's Office of Education, Mayor Livy Schaaf, where our director of education at the time, who was a previous educator in Oakland, was approached by some of his students and was asked if he knew of any resources available to help students who didn't have home access to computers or internet to participate in forced online learning. And unfortunately, at the time, there weren't any organizations who were offering this type of support, and our school district, our charter schools did not have the funding available to loan out devices to every student who needed one. So we launched an initiative that brought together a coalition of partners, including our Oakland Unified School District, the City of Oakland, various community partners, and philanthropic partners to provide these devices and internet and support service to our students. And at the beginning, we were meeting regularly, at least once a month, to ensure that all of the work that we were doing, all of the devices that we were providing were working effectively and were serving our students the way that they were supposed to. During one of those monthly community engagement meetings, one of our partners actually shared with us that families were telling them that the hotspots that we were loaning out to our students were not working very well for them. So at the time, what our director decided to do was get in his car, grab one of these hotspots, and test them out throughout the whole city. And what he found was that these hotspots were barely working in certain communities. And these were our lower income communities where the majority of residents were people of color. And this was a significant turning point for us. It's when we really pivoted our work to focus on community-wide connectivity, as well as supporting student connectivity. And we just recognized that the digital divide is a structural problem that has been further enhanced by decades of disinvestment by ISPs in our lower income communities. So we're still very focused on scaling and sustaining home digital access for students, but because our students don't live in silos, we are also dedicated to ensuring that the rest of our Oakland community has access to high-speed, reliable, affordable internet. So I know that that's a lot. I try to give you a little history of how we started, where we are now. But yeah, through this initiative, we've been able to respond to the urgent need for devices and internet connectivity for our students. Back in 2020, we were able to work with schools to develop systems that helped identify what need really existed. We've been able to monitor the effectiveness of these devices. We have established a phone banking to ensure that we are not missing any students, especially those hard to reach students like the ones who are housing insecure, our foster students. We have been able to leverage COVID era funding, like the Emergency Connectivity Fund, the Affordable Connectivity Program, through use of philanthropic funding. And right now, what we are really focused on in ensuring that this once in a generation funding opportunity to close this digital divide ends up serving the communities that need it the most for generations to come. We Oakland Undivided, again, we're a coalition, but we're only 4 members in our staff. So we're in charge of bringing everyone together. So the fact that our director was just like, all right, I'm going to do it. Let's get in the car. I think was something really unique that showed everyone who was working with us just how dedicated we were. We're not just handing something out and like, okay, hope it works, bye. For us, it's really like, no, let's make sure it works. And if it doesn't, what are we going to do to make sure it is working? And I think listening to one of these episodes, I think Gina is the one who said something that COVID was like a highlighter, and it highlighted some of the things that we were doing really well and some of the things that needed addressing. And I think this is a perfect example. It just highlighted the inequities and who had access, who didn't, and how important it is to just be part of society nowadays.
You know, Andrew, it's pretty inspiring to hear about the level of commitment, like literally hitting the streets to make sure everything works. It's a reminder that solving the digital divide, it's more about what we can do and just handing out devices.
Yeah, I totally agree. Handing out devices is the easy thing. Whether or not those devices are equally accessible is a totally different thing. And it makes me think it's one thing to provide this tech, but how do you turn that tech into real accessible learning opportunities for students? So how does Oakland Undivided actually work with schools to make sure the technology is being used effectively?
Our goal is to ensure that students have these tools necessary to access a 21st century education. But really the platforms and tools that teachers use, we leave it up to them. Teachers and admins know their students best. And we really think these are the decisions that are best made by them at the school level. We really trust in teacher expertise. So we leave it up to them. What we are aware of, though, is that a lot of these adaptive and advanced learning tools are bandwidth consuming, and they require advanced software that require advanced connectivity. So our focus is to make sure that teachers never have to restrict themselves from using these tools because their students might not be able to access them at home. And that the data-enabled loaned Chromebooks that our students are receiving are working as best they can with reliable high-speed connections. So like I shared earlier with the 4G example, with the hotspot example, once we found out that these 4G hotspots that we were initially loaning out to our students were barely providing that connectivity in specific communities, we worked with our school district to upgrade to more advanced hotspots, 5G hotspots that served our students better. And like I shared, we're continuing to work with OUSD to monitor the quality that our students are getting using this technology through our partners at Hubble IQ that runs a speed test anytime a student opens their Chromebook. And again, this is just a way that we are ensuring that these tools that our schools are spending money on are actually effective and are allowing our students to take advantage of all of these innovative programs that currently exist. One thing I will say, though, about a way that Oakland Undivided collaborates with schools to enhance learning opportunities is that by being part of a coalition, we bring all kinds of organizations together. And that really allows our schools to meet and partner with orgs that offer some enhanced learning opportunities, and particularly around career development and exploration. So we've been able to bring in a couple of Oakland-based orgs. One of them is called Hack the Hood, and it serves youth who are interested in pursuing tech-related careers, but who don't have the access or the resources they need. And it provides them with the tech skill building program and career navigation support. And it's just an amazing partner, an organization that OUSD can really learn from and can encourage students to participate in. And then another organization is called Tech Exchange, and they offer internship opportunities to prepare Oakland youth for careers in tech, with a focus on hardware repair and customer service. So again, it's just the beauty of coalitions, just bringing so many different groups together, allowing them to learn from each other, feeding from schools to these programs and really equipping our students to take on these high-paying jobs is just something that we've been able to do.
I love that they trust the teachers and administrators to pick the best tools for the students. It makes total sense. Like, who knows the kids better, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's smart to leave that decision-making in the hands of those educators. But it's also interesting, if they're letting schools choose the tools, how do they make sure that what they're providing is actually age appropriate across all of those different grade levels?
That's a good point. I mean, a high school student's needs are completely different from, say, an elementary student.
Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be some way that they assess those needs to ensure the tools are not only effective, but also fit the age group.
Yeah. So here's the question. How do they navigate that balance while maintaining or making sure, rather, that it all aligns with what the schools and the students really need?
Again, for us, it's really, let's recognize that teachers are the experts here. Let's depend on them to make those decisions. Some of the things that we do help OUSD, or we ensure that OUSD does, is listening to the teachers and the parents, and really making those decisions based on what feedback they hear from them. So OUSD, what they do, they loan out touchscreen devices to students in TK to first, because that's a lot easier for our youngest ones to use. Another thing that OUSD does for these Chromebooks and hotspots, they have content filtering and privacy control to just mitigate against the misuse of some of this tech and prevent students from seeing things that they might not be ready to see yet. And then again, talking about coalition, one of the other organizations that we bring in is Common Sense. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they offer reviews on movies, shows, and even certain educational tools. So they talk about the efficacy and appropriateness for different age groups. So what we do, we try to involve this representative in different types of conversations with school administrators whenever it's possible.
I've got to say, it is really smart how they involve teachers and even parents in making these tech decisions. I mean, they're the ones in the trenches every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's impressive that they're thinking about everything from touchscreen devices for those little ones to content filtering. But it does make me wonder.
I feel like your wheels are turning.
I'm always wondering. You know me. I'm curious, okay? So I'm curious, what happens when kids don't have a stable home environment? Like, how do schools make sure those students are still getting access to and keeping access to technology and, probably even more importantly, the internet, when their living situation is constantly changing? Home Wi-Fi doesn't work for them if the home is constantly changing.
Yeah, that is a really great point. I mean, it's one thing to get tech into kids' hands, but keeping it accessible for students who are on the move, I mean, that's just a whole different challenge.
Housing instability is a huge problem in Oakland. And we really do believe that schools are well equipped to help maintain student connectivity And what OUSD has done in some of our charter schools too, they've successfully integrated a tech check survey to their back to school forms. That way, every student who is returning to school is informing the school of their tech needs at home. And this assessment only asks them 3 questions. It's, do you have a computer at home? Do you have access to this computer whenever you need to do schoolwork? And does your student have reliable and fast internet? 3 really easy questions. Based on their answers, our schools know whether or not they need to have a lone device available for them. And that's it. We don't need to know anything else. We just need to know how connected are you. So that's one of the things. And again, because every student has to fill it out, there's absolutely no stigma behind it, and nobody needs to know the answers. We have thousands of students who identify a need. And then these devices are available at school, so students can go to the school, pick it up directly. Nothing is ever mailed. We make it as easy as possible for the family or the student to pick up their devices. And while for us a wireline or fixed wireline solution is more reliable, we know that these hotspots just make the most sense for certain populations, like our housing insecure students. Earlier, I also mentioned that we were able to create a phone banking system. So in addition to integrating these assessments into the back to school form, we partnered with OUSD to offer phone banking support. And, we're aware that not all families, especially those who lack access to home internet, or who are just not very tech savvy, they don't have access or know how to use some of the communication platforms that our schools rely on. Here in OUSD, it's Parent Square. So we rely on our phone bankers to do that additional outreach to certain families. And the beauty of doing phone outreach is that a family only needs to have a phone that takes calls. They don't need access to email. They don't need anything fancy. As long as they can take a call, we're able to provide them with the resources and the information that they need about what they have available to them. So that's one thing that we've been doing, just leveraging our phone banking support. And during the pandemic, what our phone bankers were mainly focused on was calling these families who hadn't filled out a tech check survey and asking them what their needs were and letting them know, if they qualified, letting them know you have a Chromebook available, you have a hotspot available, go pick it up at this school. So again, just taking the resources to them, making it as easy as possible for these families to find out about these resources. So that was at the beginning. We still have phone bankers working today, and their work has evolved based on the need. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Affordable Connectivity Program, but the Affordable Connectivity Program no longer exists, unfortunately, but it was a program that offered a $30 discount on internet at home. So folks could utilize this discount for home internet or for their phone internet. So understanding that some folks are constantly moving, we made sure to have our phone bankers contact them. So we had a list of all of the families who had a hotspot loaned out to inform them about the program, walk them through the whole application process. And like I said, households could use this discount on home internet or their phone internet, which is extremely helpful for these families with unstable housing. And it's also another way that OUSD was able to support our students. This program, you could qualify for the ACP if you were receiving any type of public benefit, if you were receiving free or reduced lunch, if you were receiving Social Security income. There were numerous ways to qualify, but one way that really benefited our district is that our district is considered a community eligibility provision district, which means that the majority of the students enrolled qualify for free or reduced lunch. So every student in OUSD qualified for this $30 a month discount on their internet service. And so what OUSD did was create the documentation that families needed to apply for this discount. So again, just making it as easy as possible, eliminating some of the barriers about finding the right documents to prove your eligibility. And OUSD gave it to students. It also sent it through them through their Aries platform. And our phone bankers also contacted some of the families who, like I said, contacted families who had a hotspot loaned out to let them know, like, this exists. Let me walk you through it. Here's the website. You didn't receive your document. Let me email it to you. So again, just making it so easy. And again, when we're thinking about our housing unstable, our families who just don't have access to internet, families who lack the digital skills to apply for one of these benefits, it's just so important to have someone walk them through it. And that's what our phone bankers have been able to provide for so many students.
You know, Cinthia really outlines an impressive approach.
Yeah.
Everything from tech check surveys and back to school forms to the phone banking system for reaching families who may not be online. It's like they've thought of every angle.
Yeah. And I'm guessing a lot of it came through trial and error too, right?
Right.
But it's smart how they're removing barriers, whether that's simplifying those surveys down to just the 3 questions or using those phone banks to guide families through applying for an affordable connectivity program. It really feels like they're meeting everybody right where they are.
Right, but not every school has those resources. So for administrators who might not have the funding or partnerships that Oakland Undivided does, what's the best way for them to start making sure their students still get connected?
Yeah, I think the most important piece of advice that I can give is that collaboration is key. Schools should not be working in silos. There are hundreds of digital inclusion coalitions across the country, and chances are that there is one near you. And many of these organizations can keep you informed about funding opportunities, partnerships, advocacy efforts that can help you access the resources that you need. So just having someone attend one of these meetings on a regular basis can save you so much time and keep you aware of resources that are available to your students. Oakland Undivided is one of these coalitions that offers that support to our school system. But there's Shelby, Schools, Health, and Library Broadband Coalition, which is another really well-recognized one. We've actually benefited a lot from being part of Shelby because it's helped us stay informed about the E-rate program. And its recent expansion to help schools cover the cost of home loaned hotspots. And if you haven't heard about E-rate, super important because E-rate is an FCC program that helps schools and libraries cover their internet costs. But very soon the program will expand to just address the growing need for connectivity outside of school, and it's going to help them cover the cost of home loaned hotspots, which can make a huge it's a huge difference in the amount of hotspots that schools can lend out to their students. It would help decrease the cost of a hotspot from like $12 a month to $2 a month, just depending on the percentage of low-income students attending the school. So ensuring that you're part of a coalition, finding that coalition, joining those coalitions, giving folks time to attend either weekly or bi-weekly just to stay informed is really important. And related to collaboration, again, just remembering that access to technology is not a student issue. It's not only a student issue, it impacts the whole community. So getting to know your local organizations that offer different kinds of digital resources can help uncover opportunities that you may not be aware of that can also benefit you, your students, and your families. Here in the Bay Area, we partner with an organization called Tech Exchange, which I mentioned earlier, but they've been a trailblazer in the digital equity space. They've been around since 1995, offering support to our Oakland community. And what Tech Exchange does, they offer digital literacy classes to any community member who's interested in learning the basics from how to turn on a computer, how to send out an email. And by the end of that training, students receive a free device. They also hold events at their tech hub to help enroll families in affordable internet plans. So our schools are just finding ways to partner with this organization to ensure that more students, more families get a home device, and that more students and more families are able to sign up for some of these affordable internet plans. So yeah, definitely just don't work in silos, get to know your organizations. And lastly, really just plan for the future. I know it's hard to do at school. Sometimes you're putting out fires every day, but think long term about how to best use the resources to sustain some of your programming. One example that I like to share is that private funding that we were able to obtain in 2020, that Oakland Undivided was able to obtain in 2020, allowed us to help OUSD, our Oakland Unified School District, launch a repair internship program, which trains high school students to fix teacher and student devices and has been so crucial in keeping thousands of devices in circulation. So instead of utilizing funding to buy more devices, the district was just thinking of like, what are some ways that we can ensure that the devices that we have right now will stay in our ecosystem for as long as possible. And funding a program like that has been so critical. And aside from allowing the district to keep these devices in the ecosystem, it's teaching students really practical skills that they can take into future jobs, that they can put in their resumes. It's also exposed them to careers in computer science, and it's been really helpful for teachers and students.
Cinthia really brought it home with that advice. I mean, collaboration is key. It's like, who would have thought schools couldn't just operate as lone wolves?
Right. Yeah. It's almost like going solo isn't the way to go when you're trying to connect an entire community. But who knew, right? Honestly, when you think about it, it really just makes so much more sense. Tapping into your local coalitions, they mentioned like Shelby or Tech Exchange, those kinds of services can make all the difference.
Yeah, and the E-Raid program she mentioned, that's a game changer. I mean, reducing hotspot costs so drastically, like the $12 to the $2 a month, that's huge. But let's face it, not every administrator is going to know about these opportunities if they aren't plugged into a network.
Totally true. And it's not just about being in the know, it's about future planning too. So Cinthia had one more piece of advice for our listeners.
Yeah, and just one more thing. Right now, we are in such a unique position with once-in-a-generation funding opportunities through the Biden and Harris Internet for All initiative, meant to close the digital divide. And there's funding opportunities that can bring hundreds of thousands of dollars to cities and community organizations. And it's so important for schools to know who these organizations are, if they're receiving some funding, and ways to potentially partner with them to ensure that students and student families can also benefit from these funding sources.
I have to say, Andrew, this conversation really opened my eyes to the power of community partnerships and coalitions and bridging the digital divide. Like, I am a community activist, I would say.
Yeah,
I'm an advocate. I'm a relation person. I want people to work together. I literally have helped build networks since I was, in my 20s. But I don't think I fully thought about it related to the digital divide.
Yeah. There's a layer here that she's getting to that we haven't really talked about in this season at all. Meaning it's not just about technology, right? Mm-hmm. It's about connecting people. Mm-hmm. That's what the technology is for. Mm-hmm. But when we connect people together, we can make sure that no student is left behind. Whether that the issue they're dealing with is something like housing instability or just limited internet access or perhaps just resources, right, to get access to any of these things. It's all about collective effort, coming together to solve the problems that students need us to solve.
Man, we got so much information today, Andrew.
We did. We keep getting too much information.
And I think you know what time it is.
I do. It's time for DMI. Well, folks, DMI, of course, stands for Don't Miss It. Gina and I will each highlight one key takeaway from today that we feel like you absolutely should not miss. So, Dina.
My name's Dina, friends. We did 2
I would
seasons
cross
together.
DMI and Gina together. Gina, what's your DMI from today's conversation?
I think it's more of a summative point. We got so much information today from Cinthia and the work that they do at Oakland Undivided. I feel like the thing that I would hope our listeners walk away with is how important collaboration is.
Yes.
I think sometimes we think about like, well, I just crossed the one hurdle of getting the technology. I literally just solved the problem of getting the Chromebooks in every classroom.
Yeah.
Or I solved the problem of getting our Wi-Fi to actually work. I just solved the one problem.
Yeah.
I don't have time to really dive deeper into this next problem. And so I think leveraging resources and expertise around us. One thing that I would share, being somebody who has done and continues to do, not as much as I used to, but the community network building, is not being afraid to think outside of the box and connect with people that, you might be thinking, well, I don't have an Oakland Undivided. Okay. Well, what do you have in your community? I grew up and lived most of my life in a very small town outside of Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And so there weren't a whole bunch of resources, but who came together? Churches.
Yep.
Community centers,
yep.
YMCAs.
Yep.
There are staples in some of our communities, local businesses like a dry cleaner or a bank. People came together to build community to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we overcomplicate it because there isn't that one organization driving the effort. As an administrator, as a teacher, as somebody who's sitting on a school board, wherever you're at in this education sphere, you have influence, and we encourage you to use it and build relationships with folks to create these collaborative spaces where we can solve these problems, in particular to accessibility.
Yeah.
Because it's more about getting the Chromebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good.
How about you?
I think my DMI is somewhat of a double click on kind of what you're saying, but she said something in the interview that I just can't get out of my head. She said, "Don't work in silos. Don't work in silos."
Same. Yeah.
Silos is like a term we often use in our business side. One division is working separately from another division, but there's silos all over the place in education. She's with Oakland Undivided. But, some of the same problems her community was dealing with, especially in COVID.
Yeah.
I went to some rural communities right after COVID, and I was outside of a major urban area in Illinois. We're in the middle of nowhere, and guess what? They had the exact same problem, right? Only instead of kids not having access because of housing instability, it's kids not having access because they're so far out remote that the internet doesn't even go out there. Wi-Fi is not an option. And so I would say, no matter what community that you are in, never see yourself as being alone. She even talked about in that last comment how many resources are available, even at the state and even the federal level, whether it's money or new technology or collaborative learning environments. I mean, all of us have access to this network of educators all over the world who are sharing ideas and all those things. So if right now you're viewing the problems you're facing in a siloed way, and I would just challenge you to think about that. Am I thinking I'm alone in my problem? Whether it's alone in my classroom or alone in my school or alone in my district, can I just remind you, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not.
So good.
There are so many resources out there that are available for you. You just got to know to ask for that help, to reach out and to ask that question.
And what you said brings to my mind, part of the reason why we do this podcast and why we do, have our email community with Next Gen Insiders, and why we do some of the things that we do is because we want people to know they're not alone.
Yeah.
And that they can learn from other people. And that's why we have these platforms.
Yeah.
So that folks can share their story, because there's other people out there that went through the same thing as you or going through the same thing as you. And they're like, I don't have to go through it by myself either.
Yeah.
So, that was really good.
That was actually one of the main goals when we sat down. What do we want this podcast to be? And we said a community of people who know they're not alone ultimately. So you're exactly right.
Well, Cinthia, thank you so much for being on this episode with us. We got such great advice from you for a very important topic. But friends, this wraps up our season 2.
Crazy.
Of our podcast. I can't believe it.
We made it.
We made it.
Yeah.
We made it. So do you have, let's think about the season. Do you have a favorite moment or an interview or something that's like resonating with you, maybe a theme that's come out?
Yeah. Well, so many great interviews. I appreciated. Obviously I loved season 1 and all the conversations that we had, but I kept leaving our interviews in season 2 just feeling so impressed with the caliber of professionalism and research and the amazing things that people had created. Obviously, there's a soft spot in my heart for the student interview that we did. So 100%, such a great time, especially having them in studio with us was so cool. But to me, the biggest takeaway is the theme that kept coming up and kept coming up. It kept coming up, which is all of us are applying technology in our schools, period, end of sentence. But the next question we have to ask is this. Who is involved in your technology decisions? And we hit that question from every single angle.
Yes, we did.
Once we heard about little a accessibility. Yeah. That's kind of what we talked about today, right? Do people actually have access? Yeah, it exists. You gave them a Chromebook, but what divisions are still there? But then big A accessibility. Yeah, they've got access to the technology, but what if they can't read it or see it or hear it or process it because there's some sort of barrier there? Or, yeah, we've got access to the technology, but did we stop and ask the students who are actually going to be using it, whether or not it's effective? Or, yeah, we got access to the technology, but did we ask the question, how is this technology actually going to help us meet the needs of the community that our kids are growing up in?
Yeah.
And so I think that theme, because it kept showing up so many times, it leaves me with the biggest question of all, which is, as you make, school leaders listening to this, as you make your decisions about what technology we're going to leverage, what spaces we're going to leverage it in, just stop and ask the question, who needs to be in the room? Who needs to be in the room to make that decision?
Yeah.
And they don't have to have final say. That's not what that means. But I just think we need more perspectives when applying this, because when it's applied well, it's great.
Right.
But when it's applied without all the people in the room, we're going to have gaps in our application of technology. And we're going to end up doing what a lot of schools are doing right now and just going, we're one-to-one, so we solved the problem. No, you didn't. We're ChatGPT, so we solved. No, you didn't, right? Because you forgot to include everybody in the conversation. So that's my big takeaway.
No, that was very well said. Very well said. And I definitely felt that theme throughout almost every single episode.
I know.
Yeah,
so
that was a very strong theme.
What would you say?
Having been in career development for at least 18 years, like on purpose for 18 years, I think I've done it a little bit longer. I tend to approach everything I do in life with like a career development, career coaching mindset, right? I'm thinking about how to help people discover their strengths and to get experience so that they can live out their calling, right? That's kind of like the very short.
And you do that very
version.
well.
Thanks, friend. Thank you. And so for me, that kind of came out in many ways as we talked about experience-based learning, whether we were using tech or not. So like I think about the fact that we had an episode about outdoor school.
Yeah.
No
How cool
screens.
was that?
No screens, no nothing, right? And then we had a conversation about the students and friends in Chickasaw who are developing prosthetics and vehicles and things that are changing the world.
Yeah.
And everything in the middle.
Yep.
And I feel like project-based, experience-based, hands-on learning can never go away.
Please don't.
And so I think that in addition to hearing from all of the stakeholders and all of the affected parties, right, like that you mentioned, I think also prioritizing getting in proximity with students and making sure learning is tactile, making sure that learning is helping them think about who they are now and who they want to be in the future. Bro.
So good.
Like, we will be developing a whole bunch of world changers on purpose.
Yeah.
Not like by accident, but like on purpose. And it'll be fueled by their own calling and their opportunities that they've had to like touch and do things. And I just can't thank everybody that's been on these episodes with us enough, and the folks that have just like listened in. I really do hope that the time that you get to spend with us, that we get to spend with you, is transformative.
Yeah, it is for us.
Yeah,
big time.
Earned a whole bunch of degrees. This podcast season, I earned like 7. I don't know.
It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Well, Gina, great job this season.
Same to you, sir.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you again to all of our guests. You guys have been incredible. And a special, huge, gigantic thank you to you all, our listeners. We literally wouldn't be doing this if you weren't there. So we're so thankful for you. We hope that you've learned a lot and that you've been challenged a lot this season. Thank you for joining us this season on the School on a Mission podcast, on our last episode of season 2. Now, before you hit skip onto your next podcast, you know where we're headed with this. We got a challenge for you. Grab a pen, a notebook, a sticky note, maybe even the back of your hand, and write down one action you're going to take this week. Maybe it's from this episode. There's a lot of good stuff we talked about. Or maybe from this season. What is the one thing you're going to do this week? Maybe it's something you're going to do, something you're going to investigate, something you're going to read more about, or a person you want to meet with, whatever it is, write it down. Got it? All right, shoot us a DM. Tell us what you're up to. We cannot wait to hear the awesome things that you're doing. And until next time, folks, stay curious, stay bold, and keep leading your school on a mission. And yes, we will see you for season 3. The School on a Mission podcast is produced by Growing Leaders and powered by the Maxwell Leadership Foundation. You can find out more about Growing Leaders at growingleaders.com. We would love to thank Cinthia Diaz and the Oakland Undivided organization for joining us as guests in today's episode. This podcast was co-produced by Angelica Oliver and Kara Mallory. To find out more about the School on a Mission podcast, head over to schoolonamissionpodcast.com.